Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of social trust and the social capital this creates. And I'll talk a bit about what it is and how mass migration is not just undermining it or subverting it, but absolutely destroying it. And the third world peasants from all the shitholes of the world that the globalists are gagging to bring into the West, they've got no concept of social capital and social trust. They don't even know what it is. And even the ones that are able to grasp it think that it's a sign of madness that people would have societal trust. You trust your family, your relatives, your tribe, your village. That's it. Outside of that, you don't trust anybody. There's no social trust. And that the impact of that, of course, is huge because low social trust societies are dirt poor. High social trust societies tend to be quite wealthy. So this is an issue for serious consideration. But I just want to go into what are examples of low social trust and how does it manifest in our day-to-day lives. And I'll go back to when I was a kid. I was living, young kid. I was living in a rural area, and there was this farmer that had this orchard of apples, and he would put out. I assume this is the fruit that wasn't good enough to sell to the in the markets or something like that. But he put out a bucket of apples, and there was a little sign in there. They're free. Take one. So now in a high social trust society, people will take one and that's it, they're free. People take one. Or sometimes the farmer would have a little thing out there, put, I don't know, 10 cents or 5 cents in the box there if you want to take a piece of fruit. And so people would do that. The idea that you would steal the fruit or that you would take the whole bucket because it's free. And I was going along with it was on the way back from school, and we were looking at the bucket of apples, thinking, and we decided that we would, instead of getting an apple each, because there were two of us, we'd get one apple and we'd share it. But that's and I remember sort of vaguely thinking back to those days that this was the sort of thing you did because someone else might want an apple, someone in the neighborhood, someone you knew, somebody who particularly liked apples. The idea was that this was for the whole community, or people in the street or in the area or something, like anyone who walked by. It was for the whole community. It wasn't for just one person to grab and take home to their place or for their family or their street or tribe. It was for everybody. Now, there may only have been, I don't know, 50 apples in that, so it's not like it was going to feed the whole universe. But even so, the idea was that it's for everybody. And the thought never even crossed our minds that we would steal the whole barrel, even though we could have. And this idea that we would share one apple because we shouldn't really take one. This is a high social trust society where you think of others and your wider community and so on. There's a English term for it, the common weal or the common good, which is very much part of the language used in the forming of the US Constitution when it was all written up, and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and so on. It was also was used widely in, say, the British legal system and laws and customs and so on there, particularly from the 1600s onwards. So now other examples of high trust are things that we take for granted. Because when I first started traveling the world, and this is on business, so when I first started traveling the world, I assumed that the social trust in Australia was more or less, the baseline for most places. I had no idea that social trust was pretty much non-existent in many other societies, or much lower than it was in Australia. And I'd experienced when, the Arabs, there was a large Arabic intake in Australia as migrants, and like in the 60s and 70s, that sort of thing. And so I was briefly at a school, there's lots of Arabs, and and Maltese as well. And they came from societies of much lower social trust. In fact, it was close to non-existent. So they would have no qualms about stealing whatever they wanted or saw. I remember in the woodworking room, things like that, or medical cabinets, wherever they would just open the medical cabinet and start stuffing their pockets with it. But they couldn't really see that they'd done anything wrong. Well, it's there. There's why can't I take it? You've got big schools and you're a rich society. Well, why can't I take that? Why don't you share it with me? So very different attitudes. And if the teacher tried to stop them, it ended up in punch-ups with the Arabic kids trying to beat the teachers up and this sort of thing. It was crazy. But that's sort of the view that they had, and they had the same view in many different ways. If say in I don't know, there was the art class. This is an early high school art class. They would try and steal the brushes and the paints. They were always trying to steal something, and I found that quite remarkable. Similarly, they always wanted to cheat. They were always trying to find ways of cheating. They didn't want to work hard on their exams or studying or something like that. So if there was a test, they'd try and sit next to someone who was quite good and then either threaten them with dire consequences if they weren't allowed to copy off their paper. Or alternatively, they would try and resort to bribery and they say, I'll buy you two ice creams at lunchtime if you give me the answers to the test, things like that. And they were always doing it. There didn't seem to be a time that they weren't doing something like that. And they were sort of violent, and the police were around every day at the school, and it was that sort of place. And they were just, I don't know, those sort of people. Unsurprisingly, many of them ended up as career criminals and in prison. But this goes into other areas from day to day, sort of as the mass migration increases, all from societies that have very low social trust, then the relative amount of social trust in Australian society and Western societies generally is declining. It's diminishing rapidly. It's quite reasonable for white people now to view with some suspicion the activities of these people. When they do it, it's okay, but when white people do it for good reason, pure observation and experience, then that's racism. It's Hitler and swastika and da. So I'll go through some examples here. Now, there are a lot of like special prices, promotional stuff that go on in various retail stores in Australia and elsewhere around the West, where they say, well, there's such and such is scorching hot price, low price, and so it's a limit of 1 per customer or 2 per customer. So this is coming back to the Middle Easterners and the Arabs again. So there's this place was selling, I think it was sheet sets or sheets or something like that, and so it's a limit of one per customer. So the Arabs arrive as soon as the shop opens. I'm coming into the shop, I wanted to get something, and I see this whole bunch of them. Must be like 25 and 30 of them or something, and they're all coming in at once. Clearly an organised group, and they want to buy these specials, this red hot price, because only 1 per customer. They arrive as a big mass of people and just clean the place out, or they'll get one each, go out and then file straight back in again and get the rest. So that within 10 minutes the shop's been cleaned out of the item. Now some shops are onto the game here, so they leave the display area where the products on sale are meant to be, and they'll put an Anglo-Saxon white person there, and you have to ask them, and they'll give you one, but they're onto the game that the Arabs are coming in a group, so they won't give them any. So they're effectively now only serving Anglo-Saxon customers. They're legitimately coming in to get 1 per customer, as it is. Now, why do Anglo-Saxons do that? Why are the white people doing that? Why will they just buy 1 and then be done with it? Why do the other people come in and buy masses of it or as a big buying group, and just clean the whole place out, meaning no one else can have any. Well, they don't represent the community or the society. They come from very low trust places. They just represent their family, a wider family. Now, when you start having mass immigration, where you allow people to come in with all their aunts, uncles, cousins, and third cousins, they will behave as a unit or a tribe. They're not part of the community, don't want to be part of the community. They make no effort to learn English or this or that. So they've got no intention of integrating at all. And rich punters in Saudi Arabia or something will build them a mosque and keep the faithful in line and all this sort of stuff. So the reality is, though, that now the store, the retail store doesn't trust these people to behave as they're supposed to in the society. Take one, leave the rest for someone else. Other people need it as well. The Arabs don't see it that way, and any low trust society doesn't see it that way. Why should I share? Why should I share it with others? They're not my family. They're not my tribe. They're not my village. Why should I share everything? So they got no concept of the social trust. Now, when we look at someone coming in and just buying one, because that's the limit, limit of one per customer, that adherence to those sort of, because it's a request, adherence to that is only possible in a society with very high trust. You've got to have high, on a relative basis, high social trust. And they come from societies with close to zero social trust. So why should they abide by that? Now, similarly, there's a farmer, and he's got like a land that's adjacent to his orange orchard. And if people want to grab an orange off the tree that's near where the street is, he doesn't mind. Yeah, okay, you have an orange there. It doesn't matter. He doesn't bother with it. And so, but somehow this Chinese migrants get to or visiting students or whatever it is get to hear about this. And I'm just nearby, out, and it's just a little bit further on down from where we're living at the time, and this minibus with, I don't know, 20 people or something, full of all Chinese, and there's I speak sort of passable Mandarin, so I'm listening to that. So there's a girl boss thing. She barks out instructions. All these illiterate Chinese rural peasants come trotting out of the bus, and they strip this orange. There's only like a few trees there. They strip it bare. There's nothing left. They strip the whole thing back into the minibus, and off they go. So what does the farmer do? The farmer just cuts the orange trees down. So I'm not having these here just so they can be raped and pillaged by some Chinese goon squad. So why do the Chinese do it? Why do they take all of it? Well, the farmer said that you can take an orange. Why can't we take it all? I'm representing my Chinese diaspora, my Chinese tribe, my Chinese. Why should I share it with the white people? Why can't I take it? And so the idea of the part of something that's there to help society, or where the farmer's saying, if you want to take an orange, go ahead. Instead, they come along, strip the place bare, nothing left, and they can't see they've done anything wrong. Why can't I have it? Now, this is part of a social trust. I share it. Unless you're going to kill me for taking it, then I won't take it. Now, the same goes for someone else had a very large sort of berry orchard thing, and they said, if you want to take a few berries as you're going by. And they sort of had these little sort of pots that you could put berries in it, and probably over half a pound of berries or something per pot. But again, the Chinese came along and so to strip the whole tree bare. Out they come in an organised group. It's not just random people going by. This is an organised group with a Chinese girl boss barking out the orders, and they go and they go and strip the tree bare in like half an hour or so, not even that, and all get back into the bus and drive off. So then the the owner of that sort of set that those trees, no, I'm not doing this anymore. No, okay, cut the branches and put up a fence and so on. So now the people in the high trust people in the community, they can't have that now. They've been denied that just because a whole bunch of people came along from a third world zero trust country and decided to just again strip the place bare. Now I could go on with those sorts of examples, and they're all over the place. But equally with social trust, the amount of Indians and Chinese and so on that want to bribe, anything that requires an independent, impartial standard, such as passing a driving test, passing an English language test, passing an exam, anything at all like that is shot through with corruption and bribery and subversion and the racial diaspora looking out for their tribe and their people and so on. So social trust is disappearing at a rate of knots here, and I don't know if it's coming back. This social trust took many generations to build and develop organically, but it's being destroyed by mass immigration. So what do we gain by mass immigration, if anything? Well, I can't see what the gain is. Are the people coming in all rocket scientists? Definitely not. Are they just low IQ flunkies to clean the toilets? Well, maybe, but what's that? Why would you import people like that? What's the benefit of that? Now, the social cost of having these people on, if we look at the wider social cost, for example, government welfare programs, or now these are for people in need and so on. And that's how I think we all view it. Taxes are going in there so that these people in need can get, if they're paraplegic, they can get a wheelchair or something. Things like that. But this is not how these third world people view it at all. They can barely comprehend social trust, and if they do get it, even I think I get it, then well, why can't I have everything? Well, why can't I take it? What's why won't you share this with me? And this they've got this sort of attitude that and it's a lot of it's ginned up by the activists, the Western white hating activists that say, well, these white people just stole it all. You may be illiterate, you may not even have a written language, you may not even have invented the wheel, you may have a totally dysfunctional society and shithole sort of economy, but that's irrelevant. Well, let's forget about that. The only reason the white folks are rich is because they stole everything from you, so you can go to their country and steal it all back again. A lot of these simple-minded, low IQ peasants. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's organized, very organized, slick organization where there are groups, organized NGOs representing the Indian diaspora, the Chinese diaspora, the whatever, and their sole function is to discover every government program and to make sure that all of their people are able to exploit these programs. And if they've got to falsify forms or falsify this, or someone sits for the English language, it doesn't matter. The fraud and corruption is just off the charts, but they'll do that in order to make sure that their diaspora can gain access to all these government benefits. And again, the benefits are for those that need it, not for those who are treacherous and deceitful and fraudulent enough to steal it. And that's where we're looking at here. So gradually, these programs are under a lot of strain, and they're under strain because they're being fraudulently exploited, in my view, by these third world peasants. Now coming to business. Now, this may not have been perfect, but one of the great things about Western society and Western economies is the spontaneous ability of people who do not know each other, who are not related to each other, the spontaneous ability of people to get together and, say, develop a new product or innovate this or start up a new business or so on. Now, it's not 100% perfect 100% of the time. There are still, there are still bad people in the middle of all this, but the ability for that's something that is uniquely Western. You don't see it outside of the West. Well, certainly I haven't seen it. So only Western people have this spontaneous ability, who don't know each other, to get together, and they share a common goal and a common vision. But because they share common values of social trust, they can do it. Now, let's look at an example, and I come across this all the time, of trying to do business with, say, Chinese or Indians. Now, they'll typically keep all the business within their diaspora, within their family and their tribe and this sort of thing. So not long ago, I went to this Chinese outfit wanted us to do something for them. And I think it's only because they couldn't get another Chinese person to do it. But they kind of summoned me to the big meeting, and I thought, well, can we do, like, what they wanted done wasn't complicated. It was no big deal. It's something that we routinely do pretty much every day, but they wanted to have the big meeting. so we go, I went to this meeting. So I go there, and I go into this building, which has got a lot of high security. You could go through one security door, then a second security door, and it is only Chinese people there. Now they're muttering away in Mandarin, and I can hear what they're saying, but I don't let on that I can speak any Mandarin. So I go in, and I'm ushered into the office of the big man who speaks kind of passable English, I guess, and so even though this is very simple, very straightforward, very 101, very routine work, he wants to have this huge legal document. The legal document is longer than the work that needs to be done. And he sort of explains it as this, I don't know you, you're not a family member, you're not part of my tribe, you're not Chinese, so how can I trust you? And in order to feel comfortable about doing business with you, I have to tie you up in a massive legalese, like a mountain of legalese, and making some veiled threats at the same time. You want to keep your kneecaps, you better watch out. Type sort of noises. So, but to his way of thinking, he comes from a low trust society. You can't trust anyone that isn't a blood relative. I'm obviously not a blood relative, obviously not even of his race. So his only way to feel comfortable is to do these incredible, the legal agreement was, and he wanted to give himself the arbitrary right to not only pull out of the deal whenever he wanted, but to take legal action at the drop of a hat, but also you should leave a bond with me just so I know. So, I said, well, what about the reverse? Why don't you have to do that for me? I mean, why should I trust you? Oh, that's different. No, it's not. Now, I'm happy to go ahead and do business with you on standard business conditions that I would do and have for anyone and everyone else. So I'm not going to engage in a special legal agreement or special arrangement with you simply because you can't trust anyone outside of your family group. And he couldn't understand that. I mean, he genuinely, I don't think he was being malicious per se, but he just couldn't understand how can you do business with someone you don't know who isn't a family member? It was beyond his comprehension. And so hence the legal. And I said, look, I ended up saying, look, buddy, you come from a low trust society. I get that, but I'm not going to do a special deal agreement for you. And if you do want that, I am prepared to discuss it, but then you're going to pay heavily for all the legal ramifications that I have to go to. So the time and cost in doing business with this guy, the low trust dude from China, the time and cost of doing just wasn't worth it. Just what even the time taken to discuss to get it to the point where I thought, no, I'm wasting my time. Even that was well beyond the time I would spend dealing with anyone else. Like another local Anglo-Saxon dude. So now a similar thing, more or less, goes with Indians. Now the Indians come at it from a slightly different angle. They say, okay, tell us everything. Give us, your catalog. Give us your information. Give us your examples. Give us your proof. We want all of that. Now, the reason for that is they're effectively saying, give us all your IP. Give us all your knowledge. Give us all your structure. Give us all your information, because then we can go off and do it ourselves. We won't need you. And they pretend that, well, we can't trust you until you've told us everything plus, until we know everything you're going to do and have done and will do and did in the past. Till we know all of that, we can't trust you. Therefore, we can't do business with you. But what the reality of the Indian, the way they approach it, is that once we have all your information, we won't need you anymore. We can get one of our buddies in India to do it for half the price, and so on. But all the heavy lifting, all the intellectual property stuff, we've already gone through that because that's our expertise. But they don't want to pay for that, and don't want. And again, they want to keep the money inside of their own diaspora or family or wider family. So, but it's pretty much the same thing. So, the very first time I was doing business with these, well, they'll spend money, with my business, with the business I have a share in. I just took them at face value, but each time, well, you have to show us this. Okay, now you have to give us that. Now you have to give us something else. Now you have to now you have to show us and that. So they try and lead you on a step at a time, saying that okay, if you satisfy us on this one, we'll do business with you. But each step you go, there's always one more step. And effectively, I mean, what they're doing is stealing your intellectual property. That's what they're doing. Let's call it what it is. It's fucking theft. But that's how they do business, and they've got no qualms about it. And they come from a low trust society. They also come from societies, the Chinese do, by the way, where it's just a fixed pot of money in the world. So the only way you can get more of it is more through collaboration, innovation, invention. But they can't even the Brahmin Indians can't comprehend that. So the rich ones at the apex, you get rich by stealing from other people. That's how it works, and that's how they see it. So the minute I say to the Indians that maybe want to do business with it, I say, no, this is the minute you go down this path, I'm going to walk away. But the Indians think that that's just he's just bluffing. That's just a negotiating tactic. He doesn't mean that, and he's just bluffing, and and then they seem genuinely bewildered. No, I'm go and find someone else to steal from. And you are big lizards to me. No, I'm not. You're fucking thieving from me. But pretty much any third world country. And again, I've travelled the world many times over on business, and the amount of social trust in Western countries is vastly higher than it is in these shithole countries, particularly the tribal countries, and particularly the ones where everything's built around a family. Tribes and villages in India, and tribes and villages in the Middle East, and so on, and Africa and the likes. So doing business with these people is very hard and very costly. Now, the reason that business can happen in the West and flourish is because of high trust. Because we now have much lower trust because of mass migration, particularly the source of the mass migration, then the transactional cost of doing business is much, much higher, whether that transactional cost is with the government or with each other or with another company or another business. For example, I used to believe all the information that was published by government on interest rates or inflation or I don't know what else, unemployment figures, the weather or anything. I used to trust it. Just okay, no, if the government said it, that's it. It must be true. Now I trust almost no information the government puts out. So now the transaction cost between government and the people. Everyone I know in this case doesn't believe the government anymore. The transaction cost is now much higher than it used to be. The government, instead of just issuing an independent, impartial, correct and accurate report, which could be done very cheaply, which could be done very cheaply. Now they have to absolutely beat us over the head with fuckloads of propaganda, and still it doesn't get them in. So again, that transaction cost issue of trust and social trust. Now, I also noticed there's quite a few people in Australia, for example, certainly when I was a kid that came to Australia who were from, East European countries like, I don't know, Serbia or Poland and that sort of thing, or even people that got out of Germany in the late 50s, East Germany, or what became East Germany. So they came from, they're white and they're Christian, all this sort of stuff, but they came from what I'd call middle trust societies. And you could tell the difference, the social trust of people like them and the local Australia, the difference there was quite substantial. But it still was possible for those people to make the transition into the high trust society, the Anglo-Saxon society of Australia was. And they still had much higher social trust capacity and capability than the third world people. So if you look to, say, the Arabs that were coming in, and say there was, I don't know, a Polish person or something, or East German who came at the same time, the white Christian was still much more likely to engage in social trust than the Arab or the Maltese or the, again, Indians, or I don't know, Fijians, and all this sort of thing. So social trust is the binding agent of an advanced society that is capable of generating new wealth. We're losing all that now in the West, and the globalists are actively and aggressively killing it off. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.